Hello and welcome to day 4 of Youth Work Week, and today we're going to be doing a live Q&A and we're going to be answering questions on Quality Mark and Hereby Right. So we've had some questions sent in, but I just want to introduce who we've got with us today. We've got Abbee and Jodie.
Hello!
Hi, so I'm Jodie. I'm Programme Delivery Manager here at the National Youth Agency. So I manage all of our young people directly focused programmes, but I also revise the new Hereby Right framework.
And I'm Abbee, the Practice Development Manager here at the National Youth Agency. So my role relates to professional standards and qualifications for youth workers within England. And obviously a big part of that is the new National Youth Work Academy.
So we've got our first question, and we've been asking for questions throughout the week on social media. So the first one is, why are Quality Mark and Hereby Right, couldn't they be combined into one framework?
Do you want to start, Jodie?
Yeah, so the Hereby Right in itself is particularly organisational development tool around young people's participation. So it's really important to kind of separate the two things out, and I'll let Abbee talk specifically around the Quality Mark and what that's for. But yeah, it's about the focus on the young people being at the heart of the organisation. So it's around changing the culture of the organisation to ensure that young people's voices not only heard, but changes are made and they're making an influence and a difference within that setting.
Yeah, and the Quality Mark is more a framework for best practice around youth work. So it looks at different aspects of commissioning youth work services and how we ensure that what we deliver is robust and of maximum quality for young people. So it's very much about best practice, and it very much complements Hereby Right as opposed to being the same tool. So it's about how the two can work in collaboration in order to ensure that what we're delivering in youth work in the UK is absolutely top notch for all young people.
Okay. Our second question is, we used the old Hereby Right framework for years, why did it need to be refreshed?
So the Hereby Right framework was written over 10 years ago, and when I joined the NYA sort of over a year ago, I'd already been using the Hereby Right framework in a lot of different settings and been getting sort of feedback around the language really used within the framework. And it was something that I started conversations with across the organisation, and then particularly when Lee, our new CEO, started, we kind of had a conversation about what our hopes and our ambitions were for Hereby Right. So we pulled together a small consultation group to kind of have conversations around if it did need to be updated, and if it did, what needed to change about it. And what was so important was that actually, because it was written 10 years ago, it was written in a space where actually youth work existed in a very different landscape. So not only was the language slightly kind of not up to date, but also it kind of existed in a world where youth work was happening in very traditional settings, and people could access that in sort of different ways. So what was really important with the way that we revised it is to make sure that it was a lot more accessible to a lot of different organisations. So if you were a youth club that were based in a local authority, or if you were kind of a voluntary organisation that had one member of staff that met in a church on a Thursday evening, that actually this framework would work for both of those areas and everybody in between. So yeah, a lot of it was around kind of making it up to date and really accessible to youth work that exists today.
And I think the same can be said for the Quality Mark, because again, the Quality Mark was often used by very large organisations, statutory provision for young people, whereas we know now that youth work's happening a lot in third sector organisations and in organisations that don't have the infrastructure necessarily that some of the larger organisations did. So when we've refreshed the Quality Mark, it's been very much with that in mind, trying to make it less unwieldy and much more accessible regardless of the size of the organisation, because quality youth work happens in lots of different places.
Exactly.
So we wanted to make sure that the Quality Mark was something that was accessible regardless of the size of the organisation, and that you were still able to adequately examine, assure and underpin the work that you're doing regardless, really.
Okay, brilliant. And our third question is, so how much do Hereby Right and Equality Mark cost?
So for Hereby Right, it's part of, there's 3 sections to the Hereby Right. So you've got the participation pledge, the framework, and then the case study. Those first 2 sections are completely free. So if you don't already know, we have a network at the National Youth Agency that you can sign up, and that sign up is completely free. And once you've gone through that sign up process, you can access all of those tools as part of the Hereby Right. You can do all of your self-assessments through that as well, so you can really utilise it and use the framework to map and plan your participation, do some assessment, work within your teams to make changes and make a difference. And then there is a formal assessment if you do want to go through that process. That has a small charge on it, and it kind of depends on the size of your organisation and your income, but again, you can kind of access all of that information for free through the network.
Yeah, and it's the same for the Quality Mark. So the Quality Mark is based on 3 distinct areas: personal and social development and learning, quality of youth work practice, and leadership and management. And the tools for assessing those are all available for free on the network. You can build up your own portfolio of evidence through that. And again, the small charge comes in with the assessment costs, because ultimately, you know, we're a charity just like everybody else, and we have to pay the bills. We can't just come out for free, much as we would like to be able to.
Yeah, definitely. And that formal assessment might not be the thing that everybody wants, but sometimes it is beneficial to kind of have that flagship and to have that kind of carrying it on that website. And for Hereby Right, we have a board of experts that meet sort of twice a year and go through that process to kind of support organisations to get that official flagship award.
It's a badge of quality, isn't it? It's a badge of quality, and it's a badge of commitment to the service that we provide. It's about saying, you know, we value young people and we value youth work, and we want to evidence the degree to which we value this by seeking to quality assure everything that we do. And that's what it's really about.
Okay, brilliant. We've got another question on Hereby Right. How is it different to the old version?
So, as I said earlier, a lot of the changes were kind of around the accessibility of the award. So previously, the assessment was quite evidence-based, so organisations would kind of have to go away and look at the framework, which carries indicators in terms of kind of mapping and planning your young people's participation, and you would have to provide evidence for us, and then the board would kind of mark that portfolio of evidence, whereas now it's been created as a tool where it is more of a growing and a learning tool and an organisational development tool, so it's something that continually happens rather than it being a tick box exercise. So rather than asking for people to provide that portfolio, through the kind of assessment, we ask people to identify what success looks like for them. They map and plan their existing participation work, and then they identify areas that they want to do better at. And then they provide that information to the board, and then through that kind of award process, they'll then have conversations with us around how they've achieved that, what's worked, what hasn't. And it's very much about individual organisations being able to set what they want out of the award, rather than it kind of being this thing where everybody provides evidence and we tick that there's an audit that exists and all of that sort of stuff. So that's kind of the main thing, but what is also different as well, which you can find out from the website, is that there's quite structured entry and exit points of the award. So previously we would just kind of do it as an unrolling thing, so people would just apply and they'd kind of send their assessment into us, whereas now, because we've formalised that assessment a little bit more, the board meets, like I said, two times a year, which means that there's 2 assessment dates a year, and there's 4 training dates a year as well. So there's very specific ways that people can connect with the award. How about Quality Mark?
I think the main changes have been around making it much more accessible, as we said. There used to be a lot more separate standards and evidence collation points, and I think now it's much more about, rather than generating unwieldy amounts of evidence and paperwork, or electronic paperwork, that there is still an element of that, but it's very much about being succinct and being creative, and it's about a depth of quality as opposed to a raft of information. As a result of completing the sort of self-assessment and quality framework, once you have your assessment against the criteria, you're then given your benchmarks against one of three standards. So either you have a foundation, advanced or outstanding youth work practice, and it's important for everybody to understand that actually what that gives you is a really good starting point. You know, nothing's ever static. Outstanding is incredible, but there is always somewhere that we can go to develop our services to have a better offer for young people. So for me, it's very much all about stamping the badge of where we're at now, but also being able to drive forward youth work for tomorrow and how we want to evolve our services in a really positive way.
Exactly, and it's about creating tools that enable people to have those conversations and encourage people to make that part of their culture and their learning on an ongoing basis. It should never just be a journey that ends. Actually, we should always continually look at getting better at the things that we're doing within the youth work sector. So,
okay, fantastic. Our next question is: should we be doing more nationally to promote not only youth work but youth and community work?
I think the answer is yes, but I also think that we do. So when we're looking at validating programmes, so professional qualification programmes at university, one of the things that we do and are striving to do more of is to work with our colleagues at ESB. So ESB are the validation board for community work, like we are for youth work. So one of the things that we're seeking to do is to work really collaboratively as often as we can to endorse programmes. And I think there's definitely some room for us to explore how we further that work. And I do think that in the sector, we absolutely understand that most of the time you don't just get youth work and you don't just get community work, because young people are an integral part of all communities. So there is obviously a space in which we operate jointly. What we maybe need to do is be a bit smarter in how we celebrate and market that. But I think that that's coming, and I think that that's a move that we're all making, and would absolutely welcome any support and ideas on how to continue to develop that from anybody that would like to continue to shape that agenda.
Okay, wonderful. Another question we have is: what kind of organisations can undertake Hereby Right and Quality Mark?
Any.
yeah.
Any organisation that works with young people, because, you know, as the professional body for youth work, one of the things that we're really keen to do is to drive up robust professionalisation of the sector. So whether that's about absolutely holding young people at the heart of what we do from an active participation perspective, or whether it's about the way that we devise and develop our services structurally, so Quality Mark, it shouldn't matter whether you're a really small third sector voluntary organisation or a huge statutory provider. You know, we all are working towards the same goals and the same agenda, and so size is irrelevant. Size does not matter.
Yeah. And we've already got quite a few interesting organisations going through the Hereby Right. We've got education establishments, we've got schools, we've got colleges, we've got charities, heritage organisations as well. So kind of echoing what Abbee said, it's participation. It is about where young people are, basically. So wherever there's young people engaging with organisations, that's where Hereby Right can happen. So.
Okay, brilliant. Another question. So what support can National Youth Agency offer to those using the frameworks?
Okay, do you want to start?
Yeah, so with the Hereby Right framework, specifically we have our Hereby Right insight sessions, so we deliver those once a quarter, and we've got one coming up on the 22nd of November, and that's a short session where basically organisations who perhaps have accessed the framework for free but maybe are a little bit unsure about whether to go for that formal assessment, they can come to that training and spend some time with myself in terms of looking at the heart and the value of Hereby Right and what that can look like for their organisation, and begin actually looking at that formal assessment a little bit more. So that's probably the best next step that I would take. So if you've already downloaded the framework, but of course, like I'm available in terms of things on Twitter, or if you do want to just pick up the phone and have a conversation with me about what that could look like in your organisation, very much welcome that as well.
And with regards to the quality mark, it's very much about individual support. It's about how we can support organisations directly. So if an organisation is interested in engaging in the quality mark, we'd welcome a conversation with them, talk them through it, what do they think, where do they feel they sit themselves, you know, looking at the self-assessment tools, and we would be alongside them to help them through that process. So it's, again, it's not about a start and an end, it's about us walking, like we do with young people. We walk with young people on their journey, as the NYA we'll walk with organisations on their individual journeys through Hereby Right and the quality mark.
Okay, so they're all the questions we have.
Brilliant.
I just want to say thank you to Abbee and Jodie for your time today, and also thank you everyone who has been sending in the questions, and we really appreciate it. So yeah, enjoy the rest of the week.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks.
bye.
Bye.